So glad you guys are here to join us. Next slide. I'm going to turn the floor over to BJ Rainbow, who's going to open us up in a good way. BJ?
Hello, relatives. Like Jaysher said, my name is BJ Rainbow. I currently work in my day job as a vice president of academic affairs at a tribal college located in northwestern North Dakota. I'm coming to you today from another tribal college in north central North Dakota. Um, I was double booked for two meetings, but it's always a pleasure to open up in a good way and try my best. And so, as I was coming in to this college called the Turtle Mountain College, home of the Anishinaabe people, which is on my mother's side, it was overcast, a little bit of rain, sprinkling a little bit, and some people they see that as they're like, oh man, we can't do stuff. It's raining, but rain is a blessing. Um, it's a little bit different than if you get sprayed with a garden hose versus like you're out in the rain, right? So from a cultural perspective, just wanted to share that, that rain is a blessing from Creator is how we view it. Um, so again, like I said, my name is BJ Rainbow. I'm an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. Um, Also through my father, I'm have family ties to Spirit Lake, Dakota, and Standing Rock, Dakota. I did serve in the Marine Corps from 2000 to 2004, attained the rank of corporal. So Semper Fi to all my other jarheads and devil dogs and leathernecks out there. Um, but I really I try my best to follow our spirituality, and so there's a lot of teachings and blessings that come with that, right? And so I wanted to share today, this morning, this afternoon. Each and every one of us that are on this webinar, we each deal with something daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, right? Um, this time of the year, particularly, there's a lot of relatives that are getting ready to go into ceremony, our annual ceremony, and and so there's a lot of, our minds are so powerful sometimes we don't understand and can comprehend how powerful they are, whether that's we're trying our best to pray for a relative that's dealing with a cancer or a sickness or a disease, or um, we talk about people, right? We gossip, a lot of those different things, relatives. And so just wanted to, share that mindfulness, each and every day. Like I said, we deal with something. Some of these things, especially as a veteran, I don't share with other people. And so I have my spiritual family that helps me, protects me, and prays for me. And so I just want to encourage each and every one of you that are on the call here on the webinar today, to open up your mind, your ears, to some of the things that are going to be shared. The work that's being done with our Native veterans and with the issue and the topic of suicide, and just be sensitive as much as you can to it, and we try our best every day. And again, I want to just encourage each and every one of you to keep being you. And if you're dealing with something or have dealt with something, um, I want to lift you up. I want to empower and inspire you to, there's some of our relatives that are dealing with the same things that they don't share. And for whatever reason, Creator puts us in each other's paths. And so today, on this beautiful day, I want to greet each and every one of you with a heartfelt handshake and wish you the best. And, I'm not anybody special, just a common man, just a human being, a father, a husband, a son, a brother, an uncle. And so wanted to share that with you all and wish you all a good day and a good webinar here today. As Jasher said, it's jam-packed, so I don't want to take up any more time. And again, it's good to greet each and every one of you.
Thank you so much, BJ. Always a pleasure working with you. We're so grateful for your partnership and your leadership in this work that we've been doing, and bringing all of the good folks together. And so I think it's just a testament to your dedication to this work, to your community, to service members and veterans and their families with how you're showing up, but you have to go. And so we definitely thank you for your time. Next slide, please. Yes, in your service. Yes. For those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Jaysha Blocker Harris, and I'm a senior project associate here at SAMHSA's Service Members, Veterans, and Their Families Technical Assistance Center at Policy Research Associates, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. I am missing my colleague Dean Dufresne, who is also traveling now and doing some really important work, and we've been helping co-lead this effort here at our TA Center. Next slide. All right, as a disclaimer, of course, the views, opinions, and content expressed in today's presentations do not necessarily reflect the reviews, opinions, and policies of the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, and then, of course, the Veterans Health Administration. Next slide. All right, learning objectives. You guys, this is our fourth and final webinar of the learning series. And we wanted to bring in some of the communities and organizations that we've been doing some really good work with over the last year plus. To really hear from exactly what they're doing, right? All of the amazing work that's happening either in their community or within their organization. You'll get a chance to hear from three of our partners on the call today. And so, of course, knowledge, expanding the knowledge, right? Pollinating and sharing some of those helpful suicide prevention best practices around military culture, inspiring culturally responsive practices for improvement, right? We want to see a reduction in our Native service members, veterans, and their families' lives, as we know that they serve at a high rate, but then also, of course, that unfortunate number that death by suicide. We're here to address that, and so build on any practical tools, frameworks, initiatives that you guys may want to adapt after hearing from one another, but then also our presenters here today. And so those are our learning objectives. Next slide. This is just the agenda. We'll get right into our presentations. And first up, next slide, we are going to hear from the amazing team at South Central Foundation out of Anchorage, Alaska. We want to also know who is in the building. You guys, please take just a few moments to put in the chat. Let us know who's in the house. Let us know your name, your tribal affiliation, if you have one, what organization or role or capacity you're serving in. We want to know who's in and listening so that we can share and pollinate and grow together. Next slide. So we're here from our amazing team at South Central Foundation. We'll hear these lessons from the field and the amazing work that's happening. And with that, you'll hear from Ryan today, who serves as the Learning and Wellness Center Development over at the NUCA Learning and Wellness Center at South Central Foundation. We'll also hear from James Shelton, who also serves under the Soldier's Heart program and curriculum at South Central, who is a Marine Corps veteran. So lots of veterans, like shared experience, right? Lots of experience coming to the table to share with you guys about the work. Then we'll hear from Darren, who is the Veteran Service Coordinator at Wabanaki Public Health and Wellness, who is also an Army veteran. And then last but not least, we'll hear from Gerard, who is a program director over at the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. And so he's an Army veteran. We have James, who's a Marine Corps veteran. All of the amazing presenters here today lined up. Next slide. And we see the names and organizations coming through. Thank you guys so much for letting us know who's in the house. Please continue to keep those coming. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Ryan and James.
All right, thanks for having us, everybody. My name is Ryan Flaherty, and this is James Shelton here, and we're going to give you a quick presentation on Soldier's Heart. So, Soldier's Heart is a peer-led approach to dealing with post-traumatic stress in first responders and veterans. And could we go to the next slide, please? So, Soldier's Heart is a 3.5-day learning intensive, and the people who qualify for this training would be veterans, law enforcement, first responders, EMS, and up here we also have community health aides in the villages and anyone else who really serves as a first responder in their community who has experienced or symptoms of post-traumatic stress due to that trauma in those jobs that they're doing. So we use a framework from another training that we have called Onaga House, which was adapted for this population. Next slide, please.
All right. So as Ryan said, the folks that qualify for this are combat vets, first responders, health aides, corrections. And to speak to what we're doing with Chakani or with SAMHSA, we've traveled around the state the past year and a half, uh, collecting information from veterans throughout the state of Alaska to find out what the needs are, and we're adapting our training in August to meet some of those needs. Um, from what we heard from the Alaska Native veterans throughout the state of Alaska. But these are the folks that are qualified for our program. And a VPSO is a village police safety officer. Health aides are some of our villages don't have medical staff. They have community members that get trained up to provide services, and they have a direct link to a doctor here in Anchorage. So um, there are first responders in the villages too. Next slide.
So now we're going to talk just briefly about the philosophy of trauma. So trauma should not be thought of as a disease or a disorder. It's a normal human response to extreme or horrific experiences. And this occurs when your senses are so overwhelmed that you feel overpowered by it or not in control of what's happening. And this can affect the whole person and it can affect the entire family as well. Next slide, please. So here's a quick look at our process and the roadmap. So we have 10 stages here. The beginning stage of Learning Circle is where we really lay the foundations. So we begin with laying these building blocks of trust and providing that safety net for our participants. And the safety net allows the Learning Circle to do the work that they need to do, to dive in. The next stage is the story stage, and this is where the Learning Circle leaders would encourage participants to share a 10-minute story. And this is where resistance really begins to be challenged. The working stage of the learning circle is characterized by a deeper level of self-exploration, specifically how harm is impacting them and those close to them. And then finally, during the closing stage of the learning circle, the goal is to prepare participants for continuing their journey. So hope and the process of change are explored here. Next slide, please. And this is a little hard to see on a presentation, but you can see that these are the 10 stages that we have, and these are the modules that are included. So the first stage in the beginning is the safe zone and rules of engagement. Then in the story stage, we have trauma triggers and survival's guilt and the cost of shame. Moving on to the working stage, we have moral injury, grieving my loss, and anger and self-destruction. And then finally, in the closing stage, we have the impact on our families, finding meaning in forgiveness, and then looking forward. Next slide, please. Oh, do you want to?
Thank you. All right, so the training intensive experience, we start out in large group, which is like we just finished this training like yesterday, so it should be pretty fresh in my head. Um, we started in large group, which is about a 30 to 40-minute presentation where we teach on one of those modules that Ryan just mentioned. And then one of our alumni, someone who's already been through the program and been trained to do so, they will get up and share a story on that topic or that module. We're completely 100% peer led. All of our teachers, trainers, and group leaders are all former participants of our training. So that makes it cool and pretty personal. So presenters share a personal story, and then from there, for each of the 10 modules, well, actually nine of them, um, from the large group, they're going to go into small group, which is four participants usually, and two group leaders who are also alumni. And they go into group for 2 hours at a time. Uh, and they process that session or that module that they just listened to in the large group. And then they're encouraged, invited, not told, not made, but invited to share a story uh, that relates to them according to what part of the training that we're speaking to at the time. Next slide.
So now we have our layers of safety. So all training intensive have this basic model of creating and keeping safety. So if a participant or a group becomes stuck or if they enter a conflict, we encourage the use of our crib sheets, our grounding techniques, or other conflict resolution tools to keep the group moving. If the issue becomes too much for us to handle alone, or if we need the expertise of our learning circle leaders or the care teams, we can meet with the care team outside of the group to develop a plan, which could even include having the coach join the learning circle. We can also make and offer individualized care to participants who might need it, and our care team can end up making that referral.
Yeah, just the care. This is not a clinical training, but we do have clinical staff available if participants need it. Like they're there 24/7 because we put folks up in a hotel. But the care team is there 24/7 in case anyone needs one-on-one time. And I'll just say that the participants are our main goal, and the learning circle leaders are the direct line of communication for them. And then our learning circle leader coaches are there for the primary the circle leaders if they need assistance. But they can also, like Ryan said, be brought in to help out with the learning circle leaders and the participants inside group. Next slide. All right, so these are some quotes that this program started in 2016 and we keep updating it and making it relevant to today. But these are some quotes over the years from participants. And what I'll say is I came to work for South Central Foundation in 2017 after I retired from the Marines. Um, and I was pretty lost at the time. And I heard about this program, so I signed up for it. Um, Life wasn't going too well back then. In 2018 is when I went through. Um, but after going through Soldier's Heart, I didn't feel alone anymore, and I felt like I could keep going. Because I told myself before Soldier's Heart in 2018, if that didn't work, I was going to give up. But obviously, I'm still here, so it gave me the courage to keep trying other things going forward. So that's all we have for um, this program.
Mhm. Yep.
I got is it pause?
Next slide, please. I gotta go back. Yeah. So this is our link if anybody is interested, but if we go to the next slide, we actually have a QR code for anyone who is interested in going to our webpage. And if anybody is interested in looking into Soldier's Heart, we'd be happy to answer any questions. And it's really a wonderful program. So thank you guys. And if we go to the next slide, we have time for questions, I believe.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, James. Please do. We will fill questions and have some time at the end of the session, but put them in the chat so that we're tracking and we can get them addressed. I wanted to share and just hearing you all present when we first came to Anchorage, and we were able to kind of get like a mini Soldier's Heart curriculum in our time there, and I just appreciated the space for healing and support, right? And then to draw up on that, these folks are doing some amazing work. Please do visit the links. They have this Soldier's Heart program, but they're also simultaneously now implementing a veteran-centric, veteran-specific program. And that's after really partnering with their community, hearing the needs of the community, hearing the needs of the tribes there in Alaska, and getting that feedback to help push their efforts forward. And so we're just grateful for the partnership and all of the amazing work that you guys have already been doing and will continue to do. So thank you, Ryan and James. Next slide, please. All right. Darren, the floor is yours.
Okay. I'm Darren Ripley from the Passamaquoddy tribe here in Maine, part of the Wabanaki people, people of the Dawn, Army veteran, multi-generational combat veteran, multi-generational combat wounded. That tends to run in the family. And apparently we don't, because if we did, we wouldn't have been wounded. So, next slide, please. So here at Wabanaki Public Health, our organization's mission is to provide community-driven and culturally centered public health and social services to all of our Wabanaki communities and people, while at the same time honoring our cultural knowledge and fostering collaboration with our agencies within those tribal communities, as well as outside organizations that are non-native and non-tribal. Next slide. We serve the 5 different tribal locations here in Maine. The Holton Band of Maliseet Indians, the Mi'kmaq Nation, or Mi'kmaq, as it is um, correctly called, the Passamaquoddy tribe at Indian Township, Passamaquoddy tribe at Pleasant Point. Those 2 tribes are about 40 miles apart, and the Penobscot Nation, which is about 20 minutes outside of Bangor. So that's the closest reservation to myself here in Bangor. Next slide, please. So from the field, this is our efforts from the field so far over the last couple years since well, actually since our last gathering in Minnesota almost 2 years ago, and our gathering we had about a year ago in Arizona. Next slide. So this is how we serve our Wabanaki veterans. We bring VA and Maine Bureau of Veteran Services resources to our tribal communities to enroll in VA healthcare, file claims for any service-connected conditions and disabilities. We help provide other access to VA resources like VA mental health, education programs, mental health programs, information about the VA home loan, but also the VA home loan that is geared towards Native veterans building on tribal trust land. There's peer support. We had a peer support group a couple years ago that I had started, but had very minimal participation. So now the peer support is more one-on-one focused. It's basically kind of given as any veteran that needs help, and they approach our organization for that help and assistance. I'm available. We're very big on culture as prevention. A couple of things that we do. We do our sweat ceremony and our canoe trips every year. We do about 2 canoe trips. The the first canoe trip is a joint one with the veteran organization here in Maine Veterans Project, that brings together Native and non-Native veterans as well. And then in August we do an ancestors paddle from the Passamaquoddy tribe at Indian Township to the Passamaquoddy tribe at Pleasant Point or Sabayik. So we travel the waterway from the lake in Princeton, and we paddle up until we meet the St. Croix River, and we paddle down, and we kind of cheat, I guess, because we cut off a lot of time. So we pull out in Baileyville, and then we travel up to a campsite off the coast in Calais, and the next morning we set in on the ocean, and we paddle our canoes on the ocean until we get to Pleasant Point. That's that was the water route that our ancestors took to visit our sister tribes back in the 18 and 1900s, before roadways became a big thing. Um, our recognition ceremony right now we have partnered um, with the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services to host those recognition ceremonies for our tribal veterans. Um, we do we've done the family holiday meals at Thanksgiving the last couple years. We do ice fishing in the winter, and one of the biggest things that I'm really trying to spend more time focusing on is our Wabanaki Veterans History Project. Um, Next slide. So again, with our one-on-one time spent with veterans, we have the claims clinic, like I previously mentioned. The pictures here show veterans at one of our claims clinic, but also one of our veterans and also former tribal chiefs making birch bark moose calls. Those are pretty popular, and they're really useful in the fall time for hunting season. Um, I've also started to work with some elder veterans on end of life and legacy planning. So I've had numerous one-on-ones with an elder veteran. We've got his paperwork together, his will and power of attorney, his his VA legacy planning paperwork, life insurance policies, um, the funeral paperwork, funeral reimbursement. So that end of life care is what we're currently working on right now. He's the only veteran so far, but I know that in the future, I will probably have more veterans and families to work with when it comes to the end of life and legacy planning. Um, the home visiting kind of goes with that one-on-one. If Because most of our veterans, especially the older ones, they're not able to participate in stuff like the canoe trips or the sweat ceremonies due to mobility issues and health issues, or even ice fishing. So a lot of time our veterans are very happy with just hanging out and talking about, you know, our day or our lives, and like the Wabanaki history and tribal history, and just kind of spending the day with them, going out for lunch, or just watching a sumo wrestling on TV. That's one veteran's big thing is sumo wrestling. So we'll hang out and do that for a few hours. Crisis intervention, I've handled quite a few crisis calls where I've talked with a veteran and have managed to connect them with the VA resources that they need, a VA mental health in the 988 hotline. Um, Next slide. So with our culture as prevention, one of our lodge keepers up in the Passamaquoddy Sabayag territory, he's a Marine Corps veteran. He 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 has the sweat lodge on his property, and as he is the lodge keeper, we do have quite a few other veterans who participate in this sweat ceremony. Like his wife is an Army veteran as well. One of our other participants it, is a Marine Corps veteran. I believe our lodge keeper's brother-in-law is an Army veteran as well. He was also a VA mental health provider, but he has since moved on to another um, agency to provide mental health services. And there's probably about 4 or 5 other veterans that join us on this sweat ceremony. again, we have our ancestor paddle that allows us to, again, travel those waterways, but also reconnect with our culture and like really kind of appreciate what we have and where we've come from and the struggles that we have dealt with as a people as a whole. And, and like we can, share those stories with each other and share that history. And that is a very, I guess, for lack of a better descriptive term, it's very peaceful. It's very hard to explain that, I guess, that feeling of that connection with nature once you're out there. Um, that's something that one would have to do and experience themselves. Our canoe journeys, we've conquered the Allagash last year. Well, I wouldn't say conquer. Let's say we did it. We did 70 miles of the 95-mile trek. We just stuck with the river way mostly. Um, I dumped my canoe 5 times in the whitewater. There's about 2 miles of class two whitewater, and I dumped my canoe 5 times. So thankfully it was hot and the water was nice because otherwise it would have been miserable. But 4 out of those 5 times, it was my canoe was self recovery. The first time I ended up having to just kind of let it go down the river, and I'm like, well, I'll get it later, and ended up swimming down to get it. I've got some pretty gnarly GoPro footage of that too that I'm trying to edit up. This year, next month, actually, probably I think the week after we get back from Minneapolis, we are going on our next canoe trip, and we're just doing the west branch of the Penobscot River corridor. Um, it's 4 days and 45 miles. Well, 3 days and 45 miles of a riverway, peaceful, and again, very strong connection with our culture and people out there on that waterway. Next slide. So in 2024, we did a Korean War recognition ceremony. We kind of participated with the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services and the Korean Consulate General from Boston. He's he's a diplomat from South Korea. This was to honor all the Korean War veterans who had participated in the Korean War. Um, Shortly after that ceremony, we had spoken with Consul General Kim, and he was very interested in finding out if any more Wabanaki veterans had served in the Korean War, and he wanted to do a special separate Korean War recognition ceremony for those other Wabanaki veterans who were not able to um, participate in the state ceremony. So that is happening on June 20th, coming up next week, and we have 13 other Korean War veterans and their families to recognize. We also that also kind of coincides with Native American Veterans Day, which is June 21st. Normally, we don't do a specific ceremony or event on that day as our tribes do their own special events and ceremony on that day. Sometimes we'll tag along and participate, but we don't do anything ourselves. And every Memorial Day and Veterans Day, I travel to three of the territories to post our military branch and POW and MIA flags in our tribal communities. Next slide. So these are some pictures of this past year's Thanksgiving potluck on the Penobscot Reservation. Um, I'm rocking my new Moose Christmas sweater that I got. We had pretty good turnout this year, not as much as last year, but close to the same numbers. We had a lot of community donations for food. Some community members had donated side dishes and desserts just to drop off for our event, and they headed to their own families. Um, this has gotten to be pretty popular, and it's really done because a lot of people um, are alone on the holidays, and sometimes they may not have friends or family. This allows us to bring everyone together that may not be able to travel due to health conditions or don't have a lot of family to spend time with. So I've been doing this the last couple years to bring everyone together so nobody is alone, and it's just a very good way for people to be involved with our other community members and our other veterans. Next slide. So our Wabanaki Veterans History Project, I got the idea from the Smithsonian's Veterans History Project. I really wanted to focus on our tribal veterans because growing up on the reservation, we knew who some of the veterans were, but we didn't know their stories. A lot of people have kept those stories to themselves. Obviously due to, traumatic reasons, combat and everything, but also when a lot of our veterans came back, from World War II, from Korea, Vietnam, they didn't have a lot of resources available to them, especially being native and, you know, sometimes uh, the VA wouldn't allow them to use their VA benefits for like the GI Bill and home loans. But like we really need to tell their stories because they deserve that recognition and fighting for our country. But also it's part of world history, it's tribal history, it's American history, and I'm spending numerous hours researching military records, talking with family members, researching unit histories online, to get the details of our deceased veterans service time. But with our living veterans, either audio or video recording, the one-on-one interviews with the veterans, so we can get their stories down and documented so they can permanently be heard by our tribal members and outside organizations. Next slide. So this is my contact information. If anyone has any questions about anything, my email is right there, as well as my work phone. Our organization website is there as well. Does I guess now is time for questions.
Thank you, Darren. Think the group is on board to say that maybe you hit a record with the 5 times in the canoe turning it over. But thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to highlight, you didn't say suicide prevention a lot, but what you did is talked about a lot of the protective factors that you guys are addressing in your community and how you are decreasing risk factors. And so I was just writing notes. You talked about a lot of opportunities for connection and reducing isolation with your service members and veterans. And we know, the data tells us and shows us that isolation is a risk factor. You talked about family and the pieces of belonging. And you talked about culture is prevention, so using culture as prevention. You talked about housing security. The list went on and on. You talked about you guys helping veterans with claims and how financial stability is a protective factor. So when we're thinking, it high level, we're not saying suicide prevention, but we are addressing the factors that increase or decrease suicide prevention in our service members, veterans, and their families. So thank you for sharing that. And then we will go ahead and turn the floor over. Let's see if we're ready. Excellent presentation. Lots of love in the chat, and we do have some questions lined up, and we'll see if we can get to one or two. But I wanted to see Gerard, if you're able to hear us, or if we can hear you, or you're almost there. But if you're not, that's okay. We can go to a question while you get set up. Let us know if you can hear us. You guys, we can always count on tech to, disrupt the plans. But while Gerard gets set up, we can go ahead and address one of the questions that came through from our participants. And this one was for Ryan and James. As far as your work with Soldier's Heart, can you share how the training improves preventing suicide among American Indian, Alaska Native service members, veterans, and their families? Can you guys share? Is there a cultural competence piece within the training?
Yes. This is James. Our approach to the suicide prevention is, and I'm a prime example, serving time in the military, coming out of the military, transitioning out, and not being able to share what's on my mind or not be willing to share what's going on with me. And then the downward spiral that some of us take after transitioning out of the military. And Soldier's Heart gives a great opportunity for service members, Alaska Native, American Indian, and non-Native, um, to finally find a safe place to communicate with someone that understands or others that understand. For example, when I retired from the Marines, I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. Um, and then I went to Soldier Start and I heard a Green Beret in front of the whole group say that he had PTS. And I was like on cloud nine after that. I was like, well, if he could say it, I could say it. Um, and we do have a lot of Alaska Native and American Indian folks go through, but the community is folks that are dealing with normal reactions to trauma, and we're trying to address that to help prevent suicide and improve strength and family and community as a whole, if that answers. I had a stroke recently, so I'm trying to keep up.
Thank you, James.
You're
Yes, for
welcome.
sure. Yes, indeed. Thank you for sharing that. Um, all right. Gerard, are you able to come off mute?
Can you hear me?
In the nick of time, we can hear you. Next slide, please. The
All
floor is
right.
yours, sir.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I have no idea what's happened. We've got IT crews from halfway across the world trying to figure it out. I'm on a different computer now, so I'm sorry for the inconvenience and everything. I'm Gerard Ball, Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians Department of Military and Veterans Affairs Program Director. And I wanted to highlight what the Eastern Band has accomplished since our meeting in Arizona, which seems like a long time ago, but if you think about it, it was, right at a year, a little bit less than a year, whatever you want to call it. And we've accomplished so much and learned so much. And so I just wanted to highlight those things because I feel like they're educational for folks, and you won't have to have the headaches or the turmoil because we've got some answers now that I think will be really productive. So next slide, please. As I stated, I'm a member of the Eastern Mountain Cherokee Indians from the Yalla Hill community here in Cherokee. Served in the United States Army from 96 to '04. And you guys may have done this, but I was in the middle of an IT crisis, so I missed all that stuff. A graduate of the University of Tennessee. Go Vols. Next slide, please. One of the things that I really focused on is working with our partners that had already started suicide prevention programs in the community with youth, elders, any other population group. I wanted to incorporate them into everything we did because suicide prevention and training, education is not just a issue related to our veteran community. So I wanted to incorporate the community and that sense of a community in everything we did. So I brought them into our programs, and I think that helped make us successful in the way we approach things and everything. Next slide, please. and here's where we'll start getting into the meat and potatoes of what we've accomplished over the past year. In 2025, we all met out there and started the learning process and the getting to know each other and what each tribe had that was working, was not working, what questions we had. Just a great learning experience, and trying to hopefully build, the opportunities, the existing strengths that we had, and make a comprehensive um, program that just included the entire community and every organization, and not duplicate efforts, but strengthen what was out there. Next slide, please. One thing that was really important to us, and this goes back to our youth over the past year, prior to the 2025 meeting in Arizona, we had four youth suicides here on the eastern band of young children. And that's why one reason I was really focused on that importance, because those youth, their families had veterans in them. And that I noticed during that phase, that those veterans reacted a lot more deeply than the normal family did. And I think that was sort of traumatizing. It caused the cultural trauma, their military service trauma, and everything to be magnified. And I noticed that, and I thought that was very unique and at the same time strange and very concerning. So that was one thing that really helped us in the community-driven, culturally respectful care, because that ripple effect I saw do things I had never seen it do before, which was very concerning. Next slide, please. And here's where we really started coming together as groups, organizations, and putting things together. And so, create a standing coalition. And I think we all try to do that, bringing all of our organizations within our tribes together. For ours, Department of Mental Health, or Behavioral Health, the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, Public Health and Human Services, Tribal Leadership was already on board, Emergency Services, our education programs, combining them, VA, SAMHSA, IHS, bringing all those partners to the table and stop duplicating and running around doing our own program and having 7 or 8 programs out there. Have one program for the tribe, almost like a track system. So if something happened, whether it be a youth, a veteran, an elder, the track program kicked into effect, and those special responders for that track system automatically were able to implement their program training. And if it branched out and you had to bring another track in, then you did that. But you had all these folks combined now instead of having fragmented. That improved our coordination of services. It reduced the duplication, which was huge. It increased our referral success rates, stronger community partnerships, because instead of talking in different groups, now we all started talking together, which was wonderful. And it unified our entire suicide prevention strategy, which was key, because we don't want to duplicate things. We want to magnify what we do. And instead of bringing a hammer to a situation, bring a sledgehammer to it. And when we combined everyone, that's what we did. We brought the entire force of our efforts, our group, into the fray, per se, and we're able to just really, confront it at all levels. So next slide, please. This was a question that was asked and nobody had an answer. So I dove into it. So everyone's familiar with the 988 suicide and crisis lifelines. The states have them, counties have them. But what our question was is, why don't we have a 988 suicide and crisis lifeline that is headquartered or positioned or set up within our tribal boundaries, our tribal lands? And nobody could answer the question. They were like, I don't even know if the 988 campaign can be done that way. Well, since then, we dug and dug and dug, and we found out it can be. And the 988 grant system allows specifically for that program to be implemented within tribal boundaries, which allows us the opportunity to take that 988 system and make it culturally sensitive. So instead of an enrolled member or an Alaskan Native or anyone like that, calling in and getting somebody, you call in from Cherokee and you get somebody that answers the phone in, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That's not the case. That doesn't help. And that was our concern. So with this, we were able to find out, yes, you can do it. We can train our 911 dispatchers, have crisis intervention folks inside the dispatch or cross-trained. And when they answer the phone, you have the community members in your community talking to the community member that's in crisis. And we think that is huge because then, you know, they can relate. They know what they're talking about instead of somebody halfway across the United States trying to answer a question for somebody that has no idea the cultural sensitivity or the cultural trauma or whatever they have to do. And that was huge. So just for everyone out there, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is the grant system is set up to be successful, and you can apply for it for your own tribes to implement that program in the system, and it's completely funded through that grant system. So that's really excited about that, and hopefully it did take a little while to learn that. So I'm hoping within the next upcoming year, when that grant process comes out, we'll do that and be able to get it set up in our 911 systems. Next slide, please. Uh, This was huge, and I call it the Veteran Resource Coordination Hub. But here we have a running joke. It's EBCI 101. Each of our tribes have a lot of resources through different programs. And what I found out as an enrolled member that I wasn't even aware of all the resources that were out there. And so we have that running joke. Why don't we have the EBCI 101 for dummies or something along those lines to where everyone has a centralized location that they can go through or go to and be pointed in the right direction instead of going to one entity and, well, we can do this, but they can do that, and then having to hopscotch around. We think that's a waste of time. It doesn't help those folks that are in crisis. So any door that you go into should be the right door. It shouldn't be a wrong door. And that's the way we approach that. And we have started since then, we've started having I call it, like I said, the Veteran Resource Coordination Hub, but we've brought those resources into our tribal portal. So you can reach out to any program and they can get you to the right point or talk to you while the phone's ringing, and then I join the phone call or I join the email is instead of you having to go round and round, which is very, very aggravating for our community members. So we're really proud of that. That is an ongoing process because we all have so many programs out there that need to be brought into this fray. So really proud of that. Excited about it. It makes things a lot easier on the worker bee end instead of getting phone calls and emails and the occasional text message from a third party. Now we have that centralized location to be able to do that. It reduces those barriers, improves the services, the navigation of those services, and the faster access, which leads to the better continuity of care, which is huge in this process. Next slide, please. Veterans data and evaluation strategy. That was something that was just when I first took this position, I was sort of shocked that statistics, that history numbers were not kept. I don't understand that. It just wasn't kept in the past. And so people would ask questions and I couldn't answer them because we didn't have the statistics. We didn't have, the number of tribal veterans within the tribe. How many veterans had we ever had? It was amazing. That should have been something I could have rattled off, but it was never documented. So since then, we have worked with our numbers folks and combine those service utilization methods to include the suicide risk indicators, the protective factors, referrals, the program effectiveness, all of that in one central hub, which allows us to make better decisions based on that data, identify the service gaps, which goes back to the previous slide about our portal, and allow us to fill those gaps in. Funding justification, which is huge, which goes back 2 slides to our 988, because now we're able to explain why we want to do this. And it enhances our program accountability, which Military and Veterans Affairs I hold to a very high standard. I want to be the front runner for tribal land, for tribal Indian country, which in turn we're going to be the front runner for all of our veteran services out there. We're going to do it the right way. That's always a goal I think we should always try to reach for, and I want to do that. That in turn motivates us to go out there and get stronger grants and be competitive with our states and our counties and the federal system, because we all know that system is not set up to be successful towards us. Monies come from the federal system. They go to the states. The states decide a lot of cases where they want to send those. And that's not the way that should be. As federally recognized tribes, sovereign nations, we need to be at the forefront on the grant process and the funding process to get the money and bring it directly to our tribes and have those services and that financial gain here instead of having to fight for crumbs that are left at a table. Next slide, please. Our community needs and capacity assessment. We had done one of those in 2023, I believe it was. There were gaps in services, but what I found out is prior to my arrival, when you don't know what gaps or what services are there, you don't know what gaps or services are there. It sounds ironic, but we learned that when opportunities aren't given to the community, the community is not educated and they don't understand what is out there, then they have no idea what they're missing. So that was skewed. And so now we've come to the table, we're bringing these services, we're bringing these opportunities, the collaboration, the training, the resources, we're bringing it to the table. And now we're better able to see what we're missing, what we're able to bring in, and what we need to go fight for. So really excited about that. I think that helps educate my end, also the community end. It improves our strategic planning for the future, which we're working on. Definitely more efficient in our resource allocation. That goes back several slides to where we start combining those resources instead of running over each other. And definitely, I've seen this stronger interdepartmental collaboration. I love that. This is probably one of the first, definitely not state system, but one of the first groups that has come together as a group. And I love that because oftentimes we're fighting each other, but here they come together, they offer to help, and move forward. So next slide, please. Uh, Develop a Cherokee Veteran Suicide Prevention Strategic Plan. Real briefly, our goals and objectives. This goes back several slides, bringing all our departments together, having measurable outcomes, long-term sustainability, and increased community involvement. That's a team effort on all of our programs. Next slide. This is huge. The SAVES program through the VA, we were able to partner with the VA and make that VA SAVES training Cherokee centered and culturally correct. And we have that system set up. I'd love to share that with you. You can take it. You're not robbing anything from me. You take it and you make it your own to your tribes, to your reservations, and you make it your own people's. So super excited about that one. Instead of teaching a generic VA save program, now you're teaching it culturally significant with the values and teachings and the traditional healing practices and everything you need in there. And just awesome program right there. Next slide, please. And I'm moving as fast as I can. And then we were able to hold a GONA, which really proud of. We turned that around, held a GONA in Cherokee. I think was wonderful with our suicide prevention, bringing the whole community together. That GONA was a community GONA. That GONA has fed into a youth GONA, which will be coming up very soon. Really excited about that to go and hit our youth with tools for suicide prevention in that youth GONA. Next slide, please. Um, Leadership, we'll just talk about leadership buy-in is huge, and they're very supportive, and that's key because when they're supportive and they understand what's going on for the community, you have that full community support. Next slide. Long-term vision, of course, is to reduce suicide attempts and death, strengthen our protective factors, improve access to behavioral health, support our veterans and their families throughout the lifespan and the community, promote resilience, healing, and wellness throughout the community, and honor the service of our Native warriors. Next slide. That's just a lot of pictures of these collaborations and that community effort where everybody came together and just really, made this program successful and allowed me the opportunity to build a foundation that will be here long after I'm gone, that like the pyramids will not fade away. So really excited about that. Next slide. Closing, it wouldn't have been possible without that meeting in Arizona and the motivation from groups to go to war and fight a battle that needs to be fought, and you know we'll never be victorious completely, but I promise you, if you go into the fray and you fight for it, you'll stop things before they happen, and you'll stop a lot of things that could happen. And I'm really excited about that. It's always better to go in a team, a platoon, whatever you want to call it. Go in as a group instead of one person fighting. That's just a lot of stress for one person, a lot of worry. But as a group, you can spread that out. Next slide. that's just a little thing I put in there where we translated the oath of enlistment from English into Cherokee, which really excited and proud about that. To help promote our language and our speakers, they got involved in these programs too, and started using our Cherokee language, in cultural ways to help in our education programs. Next slide. That's all I got. I rushed through. I'm sorry.
No worries, Gerard. Thank you so much. And we were grateful to at least hear about the amazing work that's happening. You guys, we are at the hour. If you are able to stay on, if any of our presenters are able to stay on, please feel free to do so. But otherwise, list your questions in the chat and we will get them in follow-up answered to you guys. Next slide, please. I do want to, next slide. Next slide. Put in the chat. The recordings will be housed, and I'm going to put the link in the chat as well. So all of our previous 3 sessions, and then we'll also upload this one here in the days to come or weeks to come to get them uploaded so you guys can have them. But then anyone who registered will get an email with the recording and the PowerPoint so that you guys can have it to register to reference back. Thank you so much, Gerard, Darren, Ryan, James, and everyone who's joined us for this this 4th webinar. Lots of love in the chat. There are a couple of questions that came through, and we'll get those answered in our follow-up, guys, if that's okay. All right. Thank you all so much for your time, and we'll see you in the field doing good work. Thanks, everyone.